G'day guys, today we're going to look at the Mage changes for Shadowlands in 9.0. Again, please keep in mind that this is beta and things are subject to change, and these are only the changes we could find as the information is very scattered around different patch notes. So I hope you guys enjoy and let's get to it. First up, we're going to look at Alter Time. It is now available for all specs. Also, Fire Blast is also now available to all specs, so is Frostbolt. With Arcane Intellect, the intellect buff has been changed from 10% down to 5%. Mirror Images is now baseline, and while your images are active, you have a 20% damage reduction. Also, when you take direct damage, it will cause one of your mirror images to dissipate. Arcane Explosion is also now available to all specs and has had a slight spell power change. So with Nether Tempest, it now deals less damage to the non-primary target within 10 yards. We've got Focus Magic, which increases the chance to critically hit with spells for 5% for 30 minutes. When you do crit, your chance to crit with spells is increased by 5% for 10 seconds. You can't cast on yourself though, and is limited to one target. We've also got Ring of Frost. It now also slows the target when they become unfreezed by 65% for 4 seconds. So Rune of Powers also had a small change. Whenever you cast one of your major abilities, so Arcane Power, Combust, or Icy Veins, it will automatically cast Rune of Power at your feet. It does still have one charge though, and is on a 40-second cooldown. Shimmer's cooldown has been increased to 25 seconds from 20 seconds. And that's about it for the generic changes to Mage specs. Let's have a look at Fire. So Blazing Barrier has been changed slightly. It now calculates with some versatility, so the shield amount is going to be slightly different, and it also deals an extra 20% damage to targets that hit you. Combust gets rank 2, which will increase its duration by 2 seconds. Dragon's Breath also gets rank 2, which will reduce its cooldown by 2 seconds. Enhanced Pyrotechnics has been removed as a standalone passive, however it now is just simply included in the Fireball spell, so nothing really changes here. With the addition of the baseline spells, Hot Streak now only triggers off fire spells, so you can't use the frost spells or arcane spells to trigger this. So Ignite's had a bit of a change. It no longer will passively spread every 2 seconds. Instead, when you cast Phoenix Flames, your ignites will spread to 8 nearby enemies. Speaking of Phoenix Flames, it is no longer a talent, it is now a baseline spell. Its spell power has been changed from 75% to 90%, so it's a bit of a buff, and it also deals reduced damage to all other nearby enemies. It also has a 25-second recharge, down from 30 seconds, so you'll get them a bit quicker, but it is no longer a guaranteed crit. So with Pyroblast, it now puts a burn on the target for 6 seconds, dealing 18.6% of spell power damage over time. There have been a few small spell power changes, guys. We'll put them up on the screen now for you to take a look at. Let's have a look at talents now. So Blast Wave has had a small buff. It now slows enemies for 6 seconds, up from 4. Living Bomb now deals reduced damage to all other enemies within 10 yards. Kindling now reduces the cooldown of combustion by 1.5 seconds instead of 1 second every time you get your crit proc. Alex Strauss's Fury now also increases the damage of your next Pyroblast or Flame Strike by 35%, so that's a bit of a buff there. There's a new talent as well called From the Ashes. What this does is increases your mastery by 2% for each charge of Phoenix Flames off cooldown, and your direct damage crits reduce its cooldown by 1 second. That's about it for Fire. Let's move on to Frost. So there's not too many changes for Frost at all, guys. There is a change to Brain Freeze, which now has a 30% chance to empower your next flurry, which is a buff from the 25% that it was before. With Shatter, again with the introduction of other spells to the baseline of Mage, it will only trigger off frost spells. Frozen Orbs had a bit of a rework. It no longer scales off your spell power damage. It will now deal a flat 160 frost damage, and it is capped out at 8 targets. Cold Snap has had its cooldown reduced by 30 seconds. Frost Nova now roots the target for an extra 2 seconds. Icy Veins has been taken off the GCD, but its duration has also been increased by 3 seconds, and there's been some spell power changes, so we'll put them up on the screen now. Let's have a look at talents, guys. There's pretty much one change, and that's to Frigid Winds. The movement speed reduction has been changed from 15% to 10%, so it's a bit of a nerf. And that's it for Frost Mage. Easy, huh? Let's look at Arcane now. Cool. So, there is a new spell at last. We have something new. It's Conjure Mana Gem. Conjure Mana Gem is a spell that will create a Mana Gem that goes in your bags. It can be used and it stores 3 charges and it will restore 10% of your mana, but it does have a 2-minute cooldown. Arcane Power is now off the GCD and it lasts for 15 seconds instead of 10 seconds, but its cooldown is now up to 2 minutes instead of 1.5. So clear casting can now stack up to 2 additional times and fires 1 additional arcane missile. With Mastery, it will now increase all arcane damage by 8% for the spells that it does not list in it. With Presence of Mind, Arcane Blast can now be cast 1 additional time. Prismatic Barrier has also been modified to calculate using versatility, so it's just a slight change to how the calculations work again, and it also reduces the magical damage taken by 20%, which was up from 15, and reduces the magical harmful effects duration by 35% now, which is up from 25%. Slow's had a small buff, it now reduced the movement speed by an additional 10%. Touch of the Magi now only accumulates 25% of the damage dealt, down from 50%, but it will also generate you 4 arcane charges. Arcane Barrage now grants you 2% of mana per arcane charge spent, and its spell power has been changed from 80% down to 72.8. There's also been a few spell power and mana changes, which we'll put up on the screen now for you to take a look at. Let's move on to talents. So, Charged Up has been removed, Mana Shield has been removed, Arcane Echo is a new talent. So, direct damage that you deal to enemies affected by your Touch of Magi will cause an explosion that deals 10.92% of spell power damage to 8 nearby enemies. It'll be interesting to see how that scales up. Also, Master of Time is another new talent. It reduces the cooldown of Alter Time by 30 seconds, and Alter Time resets the cooldown of Blink when you return to your original location. Bit of fun to play with. Amplification, when you clear cast, Arcane Missile fires 2 additional missiles up from 1, and Time Anomaly no longer has a chance to gain 4 arcane charges. Instead, it has a chance to grant Time Warp for 6 seconds. And that's pretty much it for the PvE changes. Let's look at some PvP now, guys. There are very few changes here. So, Temporal Shield has been removed from all other specs and is now arcane only. Rewind Time has been removed, and Greater Pyroblast now has a 15-second cooldown. Thank you. Thank you, Blizzard. Let's get on to Covenants now, the last part of this. We have first up Kyrian. As everyone should know, there are Covenant-wide abilities and class-specific abilities tied to each Covenant. So first up, we'll have a look at the Covenant-wide ability for Kyrian, which is Summon Steward. Basically what this does is summons you a little steward that you can talk to that gives you access to change talents without a tome and a little vendor. It also gives you a little vial of serenity that when you consume it, it will remove all curses, diseases, poisons and bleeds and give you 20% health. For the class ability, we have got Radiant Spark. Radiant Spark will put a 8-second debuff on the target, making them take 10% increased damage from your direct spells, stacking up each time they are struck, and the effect will end after 4 spells. Next up, we have got Night Fae. So let's look at the Covenant-wide ability. We have got Soul Shape. What it does is it turns you into a Vulpin, teleporting you forward 15 yards and increasing your movement speed by 50%. And while in the Vulpin form, you may cast Flicker every 4 seconds, which will continue to teleport you forward. Keep in mind when you use Blink, it will take you out of this form, so you cannot alternate them for insane gap closing. It will last for 12 seconds or indefinitely when you're in a rested area. So for the class-wide ability, we have got Shifting Power. Now this is a lot of fun to play with, not to mention it looks amazing. What it does is it will cast a massive AoE around you within 15 yards, dealing nature damage to enemies over 6 seconds. It will tick every 1.5 seconds, and on every tick, your Mage ability cooldowns will be reduced by 3 seconds. So that's a 12-second cooldown reduction on all of your Mage spells every time you cast this ability. And it does have a 45-second cooldown. So let's look at Venthyr now. So the Covenant-wide ability is Door of Shadows, which allows you to teleport at your targeted location every minute, which when paired with Blinks is quite nice. So for the class-wide ability, we have got Mirrors of Torment. What this will do is put a debuff on the target for 20 seconds that has got 3 charges, and whenever the target will cast a spell or an ability, it will deal damage to them, as well as reduce the movement speed and cast speed by 15%. When the final charge is removed, it will deal a lot more spell power damage and root and silence the target for 4 seconds. This will be fun to play against in PvP for sure. And lastly, we have got Necrolord. So for Necrolord, the Covenant-wide ability is Fleshcraft. What Fleshcraft does is it is a 4-second cast, and it will put an Absorb Shield on you for 2 minutes that is equal to 20% of your health. However, if you do cast it near a corpse, it will be 50% of your maximum health. So for the class-wide ability, we have got Deathborn. Deathborn will transform you into a powerful skeletal mage for 20 seconds. While you're in this form, your Frostbolts, Fireballs, and Arcane Blasts will hit up to 2 nearby enemies and deal 10% increased damage. It's pretty cool. And that's pretty much it for the chains we could find. If you'd like to download any of the class recalls we use in this video, we'll provide a link down below. You can check me out on Twitch for more Shadowlands content. I'll put a link down there as well. Thanks heaps for watching. See you later.